In this video, we're going to take a look at how to find the mean and the standard deviation of a data set using the TINspire calculator. So I don't think these are, I don't know. I might be mistaken. So I apologize to Texas Instruments or any other instructors or students that use this calculator, but I kind of think these are a little bit out of fashion. The funny story is that we had a set of these that were purchased with a grant. I'm not even sure for what purpose, but they just never got used. And as our TI-84 calculator supply slowly dwindled over the years, we opened up this box of calculators and started letting students use these TINspires in statistics. And so, and they're actually kind of interesting. The interface, there's different interfaces that you can pick. So you can have like a normal calculator screen where you do 2 + 2 = 4. That's not what I have up right now. What I have up right now is a spreadsheet interface. So you can, there's basically a spreadsheet embedded in these TINspires. And they actually are fairly powerful calculators. But as you can kind of see from all the buttons, I don't know if they're the most user-friendly calculators, but they get the job done. And so we've been giving these out to students, and without the like for me, like when I first started using these, I didn't know what I was doing, so I kind of gave it to a couple students that didn't have a TI-84, and I was like, we'll figure this out together. And so we kind of would look things up or just kind of play around with the calculator and try to figure out how to get it to work. So what I want to show you today is how to find the mean and the standard deviation and the 5-number summary and all that stuff using one of our stats on the TINspire. I apologize. I want it to be bright enough so that you can see, because I tried to get the screen as dark as I could for the contrast to make it more viewable. I guess I didn't try to get the screen as dark as I could, but I tried to get the contrast good, where the print on the screen was dark, but the background was light enough that it was easy to see. And this was really the best I could do, but I'm using a couple of lamps here for the lighting. But like if I turn off this lamp, it looks better, but it's harder to see. But when I have it on, the flicker is really noticeable. And it just went off. So, all right. So I apologize. I hope the flicker doesn't bother you too much. So the first thing you need to do is get a screen, a spreadsheet screen. And the way you have one, now I already have one on the screen, but I want to show you how to create a new spreadsheet for a new data set. And that is to go to the home screen. So you push the home button and you'll notice multiple options. Let me see, it's flickering really bad. Let's see, is it any easier to see? No. And I couldn't get it any more. I couldn't increase the contrast. Maybe I was doing the wrong thing, but I'm pretty sure I found the right way to do that, but just doesn't seem to get any better. So I think the contrast are these two buttons here, but it's not really changing things, so I don't know what's wrong with it. Anyways, it's going to be option number 3. I know it's hard to read on the video, but option number 3 says list and spreadsheets. So you would use your arrow, you use this. So unfortunately, it's not a touch screen, even though it looks like it could be one. And you want to make sure you highlight option number 3. You can see there's a little bit of a box around the whole thing. And so I hit the middle key to select. Right? So you use the arrows to move the selection, and then you hit the enter key to make the selection. And it's the center key in the center of the circle. Right? And now I've just created a new spreadsheet. Right? Then in one column, so choose a column. I'm just going to recommend you use column A. You type in your set of data. So I'm just going to make up some numbers. I'll just do 10 numbers. So 55. If you watch the TI-84 video, I'm not going to come up with the same numbers again, but 81. And then just to show you, you can do negative numbers. So like -2. I did that in the other video as well. 145. 14 I remember was 1, because I just kind of did 2, 5, just kind of did these numbers back to back. 36. And where are we at here? We're at number 8. So I have 7 so far, so let's do 3 more. 80, 70, and 33. All right. And so I'll hit enter. So make sure you enter to actually input that value into that cell. And so now I have 10 data values in the TINspire spreadsheet. And then I'm going to go back up by hitting the up arrow back up to the top. And then what you want to do the statistical calculation is it's going to put the results of that calculation somewhere else on the spreadsheet. And you don't want it to occupy column A, because that's where your data is. So you want to go to the right and highlight. I even actually go over a couple times just to kind of really separate it. And here's where you'll select the function that you want to run. And we want to run the 1var stats. So it has the same name as it does on the TI-84. And the way we do the 1var stats is we want to access the menu, and the menu will be different for different screen types. So you get one menu for spreadsheets, you get one menu for calculation screen, you get one menu depending on the graphing screen, right? So there's one screen for graphing functions. There's a different menu for that. So this button will do different things depending on what type of screen, what type of tab you have open. So I'm going to hit menu, and you'll see there's a few options there. And this is still kind of new to me, so I don't just have it memorized. So I have to kind of learn it again every time I do it. I feel like I have to kind of figure it out anew every time. But you see one of the options, option number 4. I know it might be hard to see, but it says statistics. So you want to highlight that, and you can either hit the right arrow key to open up the menu, the sub-menu for that selection, or you can hit this button in the middle again. So that's usually what I do, is I hit the button in the middle, and it gives me the next set of menu options. And you see there's one that says stat calculations, distributions, confidence intervals. We're going to use all that stuff eventually. But for chapters 1, 2, and 3, the 1var stats that we want to do is under the first option, under stat calculations. So it's already highlighted, so I'll hit the circle button again, and I get another sub-menu. And you'll see the very first selection, the very first option is one variable statistics. For short, 1var stats from the TI-84 calculator. And then there's 2 variable statistics, there's linear regression, again, stuff that we're going to look at later. But for now, we just want to do 1var stats. So I hit the center button since it was already highlighted. And it's asking me where number of list. So it's going to ask me where the list is, but it wants to know how many lists do you need to run 1var stats on. Maybe you could do multiple lists at the same time. But we're just going to, I've never tried that. I'm just going to stick with one list, right? So it's already at 1. So I'm just going to hit OK. I think OK is already selected, but you could, change the 1 there, and then you go down, or maybe it's not selected already, but let's see what happens. Oh gosh, what did I do? I'm having trouble seeing the screen. I'm just going to hit OK, because I think the OK button is the one that's active right now. No, it's not. Okay, so how do I, oh gosh, okay. This is embarrassing to have happen on the recording. I think you have to hit the left arrow. Yeah, so you have to hit so if you hit up or down, it's going to change the number from 1. If you hit up, for example, it'll go 1, 2, 3. And if you hit down, it's going to go 3, 2, 1. To get out of that, to hit left or right. And I did that once, and it highlighted the number 1, which is what threw me off. But if I would have just done it again, it would have brought me to these button options. And now you can see cancels the one that's highlighted. I don't want that one. So I make sure OK is selected, and then I hit the circle button in the middle. And then it's going to ask me, where is your list of data? So it says X1 list, and it should have something already in there. I'm sorry, I can't really see from my angle here. So it says X1 list, and it has C selected, but that is not where my list is currently located. My list is in column A. And so I want to change that to an A. So notice that there's all these green buttons here with letters on them. I want to change that to A. Now when I do that, it replaces the thing that was highlighted. Now you'll notice what was there was C with 2 brackets beside it. We have to actually type those 2 brackets in. We can't just put A. We have to put A, double brackets there. It's not really double brackets, but open bracket, close bracket. And you'll notice that this button here, right beside the A, has the bracket symbols. And so I just have to do, it's in blue. So the primary function of this button is the parentheses. But the secondary function is the brackets that I want to use to indicate that this is a list. So if I just put A, it's going to think it's a variable or something else, or a string. If you're familiar with computer coding, string is a type of input. We want it to think of it as a list input. And to make it think of it as a list, it needs those double brackets there. Again, I keep calling them double brackets, but it needs that bracket set there. right? So we're going to hit Control to choose the second function of that button. It's in blue. It matches the color of this button, which is blue. All right, so I hit that, and notice that it puts A. I already typed A, and then it puts the bracket notation next to it. All right, and it has both ends, and we don't want to type anything in the brackets. Just leave that blank. Right, now I'm done with this, but if I hit down, it's going to access this down thing. Again, this is why it's just not the most user-friendly calculator. What we want to do is hit left or right to go through the rest of these selections. So I'm going to hit the right arrow. I had to hit it a couple times, but it gets me down to frequency list. That's also an option on the TI-84. And I think what that allows you to do is use the list multiple times. So if you want to use that list in column A twice, you want those set of numbers listed twice as your data set, I think that's what that would be for. But I've never used frequency. I always leave it as 1. So I'm going to hit the right arrow on this circle pad here once, unhighlights it. Once again takes me to the next thing. It says category list. I don't think we need to make any selections there. Include categories, just leave that blank. And then it wants to know, where do you want the results? And notice it says first result column. And so whatever results this function produces, it wants to know what column to place the results in. And it's going to take up multiple entries in that column. So you want to make sure it's in a different column than where your data set is located. And I think it's currently at column D. So we'll just leave that. We'll just have it fill that in at column D. So just leave it as it was already selected. I have OK highlighted. I hit the circle button, and it does the calculation. And you see it actually takes up 2 columns. So the first column, which is column D, is the labels for the things that it calculated. Like it's telling you what was calculated. And the second column, E, are the actual calculations, the numbers, right? So you can scroll through this and see some different results. So you'll see the first result here in row number 2 is X bar. I know it's hard to see on the screen. I'm really having trouble seeing it I'm having trouble seeing it on the calculator, but I'm also having trouble seeing it on my computer screen from where I'm sitting. But it says X bar there, and right next to it you have the value of X bar, which is 53.7, and it stops after 1 decimal place. And this is another issue I have with these calculators is you can't, I don't know, I guess that actually is the full calculation. It's just, if you look down here at the bottom, it actually tells you the full number that's in that cell. So on the display, the cell has a fixed width, and it only show as many digits as the width allows it to show. But if you want to see the full number, you want to look down here at the bottom, and it shows you the entire number that's actually in that cell. So you have to highlight that cell to see what the full number is. And it actually was exactly 53.7. So that's the exact value. But it's kind of hard to tell by looking at that. Now, if we scroll down, this is the sum of all the data values, which you don't really need to know at this point, but it's 537. And it has a decimal there, but there's nothing after it. So again, it's exactly 537. This is the sum of the data value squared. So notice that in the display, it's 451 and then ... because it doesn't have enough room to show the whole number. But when I highlight it, it shows me the entire number down here. And again, I'm sorry if you're having trouble actually seeing what that number is. The number itself doesn't really matter. This is just a demonstration of how to get the results. And then hopefully, if you have this calculator in your possession, you can hold it up close enough to your face to be able to actually see the numbers. All right. And maybe this one's just kind of broken. It's kind of old. We haven't used it much, but these calculators are fairly old. And I put new batteries in, so I know the battery is not the issue. And maybe there's some other way to make this display a little bit easier to see. But yeah, it's just a little light, and I apologize for that. So here we have SX and we have sigma X. So again, if you watch my TI-84 calculator video, we had the same thing with the TI-84. It's giving you 2 different standard deviations. So we have our mean, right? So if you want to calculate the mean, that's done for you here. And we also have the standard deviation, but there's 2 different ones to choose from. SX, or just S, is the sample standard deviation. The next one is sigma X. Sigma indicates it's a population standard deviation, which you should never use because it's really, really rare that we ever have the data values of the entire population. So for every problem that I feel like I'm using a little bit of hyperbole by saying every problem is a sample in this class, but I don't think that's much of an exaggeration. we never have the population. When we're working with a set of numbers, it's always a sample of a population. So you should pretty much always use S as your standard deviation. That's the sample standard deviation. That's the one that you should use. All right. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see a few more numbers. You'll see N, which is the number of data values in your data set, which is 10. And then we have below that 5 more numbers, which is your 5-number summary. Minimum, the minimum data, so 5-number summary, the minimum value in the data set. Q1, which is the first quartile. The median, which is the second quartile. Q3, which is the third quartile, and the maximum, which is the maximum value in the data set. And that is your 5-number summary. So instead of having to calculate that manually, because without this, to construct the 5-number summary, the min and max are easy to find. You get your data set, what's the smallest number, what's the biggest number. That's pretty easy to do. But the quartiles take some work, right? Because the first quartile, remember, is the 25th percentile. So if you want to calculate the first quartile, you'd have to go through the process of calculating the 25th percentile. And there's some work involved to do that, which we go over in section 3.3 in that video. Then to find the median, there's some work involved with that. You have to take your numbers and put them in numerical order, count to the data value that's right in the middle, or if it's an even number of data values, there's 2 numbers right in the middle, and you have to average them, right? So there's some work involved to find the median. For the third quartile, that's the 75th percentile, and you have to go through the process of finding that to get that value. So it'd be a lot of work to actually find the 5-number summary by hand. But the TINspire will give you the 5-number summary, so it does all that work for you. So it's a big time saver. All right, so that's how you find the mean, the standard deviation, and the 5-number summary using the TINspire. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.